Hello, welcome to Bloq. I'm Charles, and today I'm really excited to be looking at another 6 ICOs and comparing them to the past successes of 6 previous ICOs now trading on the crypto markets. I'm not a financial advisor, and this is definitely not financial advice. Always remember to do your own due diligence. I'm not paid or sponsored to make these videos. These videos are just my opinions. Remember to subscribe to my channel and of course hit that notification button, because investing in ICOs is time critical and it would be such a shame for you to watch all my videos only to miss my latest ICO content. So, when I invest in an ICO, I really like to focus on 3 things, and that's the token economics behind the project, the company profile or team behind the ICO, and the amount of marketing awareness or hype in the cryptocurrency space for that project. Instead of spending hours of my time wasted reading white papers only to discover that I don't actually want to invest in the ICO, I just look at these metrics and kind of work out where the ICO is going to go from there. It really does give me a quick snapshot and allows me to quickly determine whether or not it needs further analysis. This approach certainly isn't scientific, and I do actually have a spreadsheet where I keep track of all the data which I use for my own private investments. So the first ICO I want to look at today is actually quite an exciting one, and it is Origami Network. I've abbreviated the name there. Now, Origami Network wants to build a peer-to-peer marketplace with blockchain-based escrow payments. So what they want to do is really quite complex, and it wants to give token holders Ether by passively holding their token, giving them 0.8 to 1% in Ethereum for payments made through the platform. If we really want to understand what this project's about, it's very important to dig a little bit deeper and look at the market that they want to enter. So first you've got centralized competitors, you've got MangoPay, you've got Stripe. These are commerce platforms that provide escrow accounts for transactions that need a third party. And what Origami Network essentially wants to do is undercut them. It wants to undercut centralized services that come from implementing a blockchain-based protocol. Now, I would usually agree with that. However, there are so many things that they need to get right in order to pull this thing off that I can't really see how they're going to make that happen. Then we've got decentralized competitors, like Payfair and Confideal. They want to basically build smart contracts for customers, enabling them to customize escrow accounts that fit their needs and milestones. And Origami Network really wants to turn this on its head. It wants to create a streamlined experience. There's no building of smart contracts. Everything seems to be done in-house. But how are they going to do that if they haven't got any Solidity developers on their team? There are many things that the white paper isn't really telling us. You've got to remember, these guys want to offer you an interface to track numerous transactions and cash flow agreements, and I don't see how they're going to live up to that if they don't have the necessary developers on board. Now, the main red flag with this project is really the team. You've got to remember, this is a 3-man team. What they want to do is quite big, and the team is very, very small. The second problem is that it's a security. They're offering dividend payouts. That's not a good thing, because it means they're not going to be listed on the main exchanges like Bittrex or Poloniex for legal reasons. The final caveat with this project is really their hard cap. It's very, very low at only 5,000 Ethereum. Now, usually I'd argue that's a good thing, but when you actually look at the breakdown of the fund allocation, we're not told what money goes to who. Not only that, but they're actually giving away 10% of their tokens for a bounty. That seems like a very, very high amount, and the team are actually going to be getting 30% of their tokens. That is an incredible amount of money if you think about it. I think generally speaking, 10% is a good number, and it should be vested for 3 to 4 years. Now, we can see here with the token economics, I actually thought they were quite poor just because of the allocation, so I actually gave them about 40%, although I don't know what bonuses are available. That's something you're going to have to look up yourself. With the team, I felt it wasn't a good team just because they might be web developers, but dealing with blockchain is a very, very specific niche, and again, I can't see anything to prove otherwise, so I gave them 40% there. And hype, I gave them 10%. As far as I know, nobody knows about them, and they're not listed on any of the main ICO websites. Now, the second project I want to bring to your attention is Gimme. Now, Gimme wants to create an automated algorithmic trading bot for cryptocurrency. So you're probably getting very excited already. I know I certainly am. The whole idea that you can just sit back on a beach and have an automated bot day trade for you is really the stuff of fantasy, and that's what this ICO is. It's all about fantasy. This project really has many red flags, too many red flags for me to really go through. So let's start from the top with the team. The majority of the company's team are part-timers. I said this when I analysed the Bloom ICO, and I also said it with some other ICOs I've been looking at. I keep on seeing this pattern with ICOs where there's people on the team and they seem to be kind of delegating their authority, and they seem to be all over the place with all these different projects where they're founders and co-founders and whatnot. It's just not good enough. People have to be on the ball 100% of the time. Otherwise, they're not deserving of your money. Now, the CEO, the CTO, and the CIO each balance 2 or more jobs. That is a red flag. Creating profitable trading bots requires machine learning experts or quantitative analysts, something Wall Street calls quants. Now, in order to be a quant, you need to have a PhD and you need to have some kind of mathematical qualification and specialize in the application of statistical methods to risk management problems. When I look through their team, I'm not seeing any team members with mathematical experience. I'm not seeing any team members with actuarial experience. Gimme does not employ any quants. The Gimme team are not qualified for the role, expect sizable losses when trading. So they've got a really nice website, they've got a really nice color palette going on, everything looks nice and pretty, and the reason for that is they're all graphic designers and web developers, and they're not going to be able to wing it. They're not going to be able to really pull this thing off, precisely because they don't have the acumen of being quantitative analysts. Not only that, but high-frequency trading via algorithmic bots actually increases transaction costs and fees. If I have 20 or 30k in one of their botting accounts, going back and forth, doing buying and selling all day long, you're going to have something called slippage. Gimme doesn't give me any data on the hidden transaction fees or costs or slippage costs that are involved with using an algorithmic trading bot. I want to know why, and they're not really telling me the information I'm looking for. Now, as far as the token economics are concerned, they're very good. They're only giving away a 20% bonus, which, as I've said before, it depends on what side of the fence you're on, but there's a small risk of you getting burnt, but it's really negligible. It's not like a 40 or 50% bonus or anything like that. And the token supply is relatively good as well. I don't think this is a scam. I do think this is a legitimate project, but I think the team are too overly diversified with their hobbies. You've got to remember they're holding multiple roles on multiple projects. There's only one person in their team that's actually a full-timer, and that is not good, especially when they're trying to do something as complex as creating a trading bot. Now, with the hype, it's very low. I put it at 30%, but it is increasing over time. I think they'll probably do quite well. I think a lot of people are going to be buying into this, especially amateur investors, people who don't really know about botting and how it works. Now, I'm not a programmer, but I can tell you right now that machine learning is an incredibly complex subject, and you really need to understand the ins and outs and the mechanics of what you want to do. And Gimme just doesn't give me confidence in that. Now, the third project on my list is DeepBrain. Now, DeepBrain wants to create an artificial intelligence platform on the NEO blockchain. Businesses that utilize the platform will actually reduce the hardware costs that come with building their own AI computer infrastructure. So the main criticism I can launch against DeepBrain is this. The idea behind the DeepBrain project is incredibly complex and hard to explain. I want you to go and read the white paper, and if you can understand it, then maybe you can distill it and explain it to me. I didn't understand a word of it. Blockchain technology, you have to remember, is actually in its infancy. It's going to take years for a scaling solution to be found. DeepBrain provides AI solutions, but those solutions are going to be hampered if the NEO platform can't handle user growth. You've got to remember, blockchain technology, cryptographic technology is really where the internet was in 1997. We've got a long way to go, and I really don't see how DeepBrain is going to pull this thing off, certainly in the short term. half of the 10 billion, yes, 10 billion tokens in existence will only be available via mining production. It will be very difficult to incentivize miners since the project actually lacks awareness in the crypto space. And then we got the token, and this is really where it all falls down, I think, for DeepBrain, because the token is very centralized. Only 9% of tokens will actually be available for the crowd sale, 25% go to the project's foundation, 10% go to the team, 6% go to the pre-sale investors, and 50% is reserved for mining operations. So despite my criticisms, there is actually one thing I can say about the DeepBrain project which can really lift it up and make it shine. DeepBrain has a market cap of $15 million, with Neo funding $1 million of the project. So Neo is definitely behind DeepBrain. DeepBrain is obviously being built on the Neo protocol. So who knows, this is definitely something to watch once it hits the exchanges, but I do think this is an extremely risky endeavor to get into at the ICO stage. Now, if we have a look at the token economics, I thought they were very, very bad, precisely because the tokens are very centralized. So I actually gave them a score of about 30%. The pre-sale bonus is at 27%, which isn't actually too bad, but it's not great either. Now, with the team, I actually thought they had a very capable team. Now, it's a Chinese company, so again, it's very difficult to research. They're all academics, but they've won multiple awards. So I've actually given them an all-star score. Anything that's 70% or above, I class as an all-star team. So I thought they had a very capable team. With the hype, again, it's very difficult to gauge because they're from Hong Kong. So I actually gave them about 40%. So this is definitely something to watch. But as far as token metrics go, this is pretty bad. The fourth ICO on my list is LenDoit. Now, yes, it does have an ugly sounding name, but LenDoit is very interesting because it wants to create a peer-to-peer lending platform. Now, yes, there's no shortage of those. However, unlike its competitors, LenDoit will be the only lending platform on the market that does not take collaterals. So it's a big idea what they really want to do. They really want to shake up the lending market. LenDoit tells us it's going to be mitigating against borrowers defaulting by 1. Smart contract compensation funds, 2. Syndicated loans, whatever those are, 3. Third-party scoring from local companies, and 4. A collector's market where debts can be sold. So it's a novel idea to a complex problem. The question is, can they actually pull it off? Why would lenders use a platform without needing collateral? Lenders would just go to other competitors. Don't forget Salt, don't forget FLend. These are companies that have really thought through on their strategy front, and they already have a working business model. To say that you're going to turn that on its head and do the same thing but without collaterals is a misnomer, in my opinion, when it comes to money lending in general. The second caveat with LenDoit is really their MVP. It's very, very basic. Expect bugs, expect errors, and expect lots and lots of technical support. And the final point I really want to raise is this. Without collateral, lender will attract more borrowers than lenders. Don't expect lenders to just jump on board and meet borrowers' demand. And it really goes back to many of my other reviews. It's really a balancing act between getting the supply and the demand just right. And nowhere is this more true than with LenDoit. You can have as many borrowers as you want on the platform, but if you haven't got anyone there to actually give them money, their whole system isn't actually going to function. So if we have a look at the token economics, I actually thought they were doing quite well. I gave them about 70%, although I couldn't find what bonus they were giving to pre-sale investors, so that's some information you need to look up yourself. With the team, I actually thought they had a good team, but not quite an all-star team. So I actually gave them 60% there. And with hype, if you look at LenDoit's main competitors like FLend and Salt, there's no comparison. They really haven't done that well. I gave them around 40%. Many people don't seem to know about this project, despite the fact that they're actually doing quite a big thing. Now, the fifth ICO on my list is one that I've had many people ask me to review, and that is Bankex. You know, I really like that name. And what the project really wants to do is create a platform to enable banks to exchange physical goods via smart contracts. So okay, we've been here before. You've got LA token. It's basically operating in the same market, and the Bankex proof of asset protocol really allows users to tokenize anything. Tokenize your car, tokenize your house, tokenize art. You can even tokenize institutional infrastructures, and so on and so forth. So I think the main kind of criticism I can say against a project like this is that some of the asset-backed tokens on Bankex may actually be considered securities. And then it really does beg the question, why would you use Bankex when you could do things through a human actor? Bankex is heavily reliant on external oracles, and this actually defeats the purpose of decentralization, since an honest human could actually facilitate the process between all parties. And then you've got the hard cap, which is very, very high indeed, set at 82 million. So I really want to know what they need all that money for. The project essentially piggybacks off the Ethereum network and doesn't actually offer a blockchain of its own. And the main sticking point with this project, the main hurdle I think for Bankex, is something so fundamental and something so crucial that they haven't even bothered to tell me how they're going to deal with it. And it's this: lack of fraud prevention. No logistics have actually been defined on how physical assets and goods are going to be controlled or maintained. If I want to put my car on the blockchain and I live in New York, how am I going to get it to Seattle or San Francisco? Is it going to just magically teleport itself? No, I'm going to have to get a driver or drive it myself. You know, you can't get the blockchain to do that yet, although maybe in 20 or 30 years with automation you could. But my point is, they haven't really thought out the practicalities of their system and how someone's actually going to collect your artwork or sign the documents or whatever. But you've got to remember that you're still operating within the legacy fiat system, and that's something they really have to talk about more on their website and in their white paper. So with the token economics, I actually thought it was quite good. I marked them down because of the amount they were seeking, which was around $80 million. However, they've already made the majority of that, and they're offering a 10% pre-sale bonus. So that's why I didn't rank them all the way back here. Of course, if the pre-sale bonus is very large, like 30, 40, 50, 60%, that increases the likelihood of you getting burnt when the ICO hits the exchanges, especially if there's no lockup period. So with only a 10% pre-sale bonus, I thought that was very, very good. So I actually gave them 50% there. With the team, it was very difficult to gauge. It's about 6.5 to 7, so they just missed out on an all-star team. But I do think the team is quite capable. With the hype, they seem to be doing very well. A lot of people are talking about them. A lot of people on my channel asked me to review them. So I gave them about 70% there. So the next ICO on my list is, of course, Bread. Now, this is a very exciting project. Now, I actually want to apologize. I was meant to review this before the ICO, and the ICO has just finished. So again, I'm really, really sorry about that. I always try and make my videos on time, but I couldn't do that in this case. So again, this is definitely a project that you need to be aware of, and that's why I stuck to the plan and made a video about it. So what is Bread? Well, Bread wants to create an open source cryptocurrency mobile wallet. So already you're thinking, well, Charles, we've got enough of those. Why do I need another one? Good question. Each copy of the Bread app actually synchronizes directly with the blockchain. If the company ceases to function or exist, the app will continue working. So if you have a Bitcoin wallet on your phone, like Mycelium or something similar to that, what it actually does is it connects to a server, which then connects to the blockchain. And the government could actually shut down the servers and prevent you from gaining access to your Bitcoins temporarily. Now, this doesn't actually happen with the Bread wallet because it loads up or synchronizes directly to the blockchain. You've got to remember, the Bread wallet is just a graphical user interface. There's no server. It goes directly to the source. So even if it fails or shuts down, you will still be able to access your Bitcoin. So it's actually a great idea. It offers a novel and simple solution to a complex problem. If you look at Dropbox, if you look at GoPro, these are all large companies that offer novel and simple solutions to very, very intrinsic and complex problems. With GoPro, it actually created a harness system for attaching a camera to a user. And with Dropbox, it actually built a network folder for synchronizing data. So again, they were basically solving very, very simple problems, but they were doing it in a high level way. And this, I feel, is what the Bread Wallet app is actually doing. It's a very, very big idea. So I'm very bullish on the Bread app. So let's first begin by looking at the negatives. There's no KYC to use the app since Bread is non-custodial. This would usually be a very good thing. However, it actually uses third parties like Kraken to exchange fiat to crypto, which requires KYC. A lot of people don't want to give their information to third parties for various reasons. And the Bread Wallet team, although they do state this in their various interviews online, should have been more clear-cut with where they stand with the KYC process. Trying to obfuscate something as delicate as KYC isn't a good thing in my books. Bread's unique selling proposition, or USP, is that users control their own private key. Only people in the know, people in the cryptocurrency community, actually know what a private key is. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, the postman, the milkman, they have no idea what a private key is, and it's grossly naive to assume that they do. The project, to succeed, is really going to have to educate its potential customer base about its security features if it's to win them over. And the final caveat with Bread is really the token. Don't stick an app in my face expecting me to throw you money if your token doesn't have any utility. And I think this is a mistake that many ICO investors make. They research the ICO, they read the white paper, they look at the website, and they assume that the ICO is an endpoint and not a starting point. So what does that mean? Well, it means that technology changes and the use case of the token, I feel, will actually expand and develop over time. So even though the utility of the token currently isn't there, I do feel that they can really win one up over something like Coinbase, their main competitor, because they're already in the cryptocurrency space with something that they can really build upon. So what are the positives behind this project? So the project is going to be able to operate in over 140 countries by partnering up with licensed gatekeepers. So Bread is actually going to go out there and partner up with the German and Japanese equivalent of Kraken. So it's really going to give them more exposure to the cryptocurrency markets. It's actually going to be adding Ethereum and ERC20 support in Q1 of 2018. They're also mobile only, so there's not going to be any web services, any websites. Now I actually think that's a brilliant thing because they're just focusing on one platform. And I think one of the most important questions you can really ask when looking at a project like Bread is really, how does the team and how does the project make money? So Bread actually uses a freemium model and it actually shares transaction fees with third parties. Users who pay with the Bread token actually receive a 30% discount on that transaction fee. So I think it's going to work in many ways like Binance. It's going to be very similar, the token structure, to the Binance Protocol. So with the token economics, I actually marked Bread down. I was actually going to give them 80%, but because the token has limited utility, I gave them 30% for the token economics. Then you're probably saying, well, Charles, why are you being so bullish with Bread? Why have you given them such a high score? Well, it's really to do with their pre-sale bonus. They're only giving a 20% pre-sale bonus that's actually locked up for 6 months. So that's actually a very good thing. It means there's a very low chance of you actually getting burnt when this token hits the exchanges. Of course, I could be wrong. You could be burnt terribly. I believe it's 50% of their bonus. I'm not 100% sure. You need to look into that. But generally speaking, I'm very bullish with the token economics here. The team, I think Bread has a fantastic team. The CEO, I saw him in numerous videos on YouTube, and he's sharp, he's candid, and he can also take criticism. Not only that, but if you look at his LinkedIn profile, he was actually a software engineer at NASA for 1 year. I didn't see him mention that in the interviews. So I do actually think they have a very capable development team there, and they all have industry and blockchain experience. And they also have Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin, on the advisory panel. So I'm very bullish with the team. But the hype was actually quite low a few weeks ago, and it's actually shot up. I actually gave them 80%. Even though the ICO is finished, I think this could do quite well on the markets, especially in the long term. In the short term, it's very hard to tell, but because there's not going to be any pre-sale dumping, I am generally quite positive on this project. So now what we really want to do is analyze past ICOs and see how they compare to the ICOs that are soon to be traded on the crypto exchanges. So the first one I want to talk about is COMSA, which was a Japanese ICO, which wasn't really talked about in the Western markets, and it made 220% return on investment. Obviously, the markets right now are all green, everything's going up, so it seems to be doing very well. And what COMSA essentially wanted to do was create a crowdfunding platform for crowdfunding ICOs, which I always thought was a bit of a contradiction, but it seems to be doing quite well. My main criticism against COMSA was really that it wanted to focus on the NEM blockchain, on the NEM protocol, and less so on Ethereum, which I didn't like. But I did think it was a very legitimate project. With the team, I could never verify the team. They were Japanese. It was very, very difficult. So I gave them 60% there. And for the token economics, I thought they were quite good. I gave them 70%, although I wasn't too sure about what pre-sale bonuses they actually had. Now, the second ICO I want to talk about is Mercury, which was kind of like a dead duck, but now it's doing very well because all ICOs are doing very well. Bitcoin's doing very well. We're on basically like a bull run. So it's currently trading at about 800%. But I think initially this ICO was a flop. It didn't meet its hard cap and it just didn't really take off. Token economics were very good. There was no dumping, there was no pre-sale bonuses. Even though they had Mark Cuban as an advisor, I never really thought much of them. And the hype, I gave them around 60%. I think the main reason why they didn't really have drastic growth to begin with was because they were kind of lodged between OneChain, Chainlink, and Kyber Network. And it was really kind of shrouded by those ICOs. Now the next one is Wabi. Now this is very interesting. This is the first ICO in my video that I've already reviewed, and we can actually compare it to the data that I previously looked at. So the information we got here is exactly the same to a few weeks back when I did discuss Wabi. I gave it 80% for its hype, I gave it 70% for its team, and I actually gave it about 80% for its token economics. And obviously as time goes on, I'll be able to do this with more and more ICOs as I review them. So it actually made 900%, trading at over $2 US. So it's done very, very well there. And I do like the Wabi team. I think they did an excellent job stopping whales getting into the pre-sale. And I think this ICO will really go on to great heights in the future and compete head-on with its main competitors, Verchain and Walton Coin. So the next ICO is Enigma, and they really kind of failed in many regards. They were actually hacked. I thought the team, although the team was good initially, they were too academic for my liking, and they kind of failed with the whole kind of process of their market cap and readjusting their token economics and so on and so forth. So I've actually marked them down for that. I gave them 60% for the team, I gave them 40% for the token economics and the bonus, but they always had a lot of hype, around 90%. And because of the current Bitcoin rally, they've actually done very well today at about 130% ROI. The fifth ICO is Redpulse. Now, Redpulse was a terrible idea in my opinion. Yes, the team were great. Yes, it had great token economics, apart from the pre-sale bonus, which is why I marked them down to 20%. And yes, there was a lot of hype. But what people really failed to understand with Redpulse was that it really wanted to tokenize the research process of doing business in China. And people don't seem to understand that business in China is done differently to how business is done in the West. They have this thing called guanxi, and guanxi can be loosely translated to mean relationships. You can kind of think of it as kind of like business networking. And people didn't really seem to understand that you can't do that on the blockchain. If you really want to do business in China, just get a one-way ticket, go there and learn the language. It's just sheer ignorance to say that you can really condense that down to a little token and put it on the blockchain. It's even more absurd to say that you can do that in a place like China because everything's orchestrated and controlled from Beijing. So I really don't know what all the hype and fuss was about. This was just a speculative disaster waiting to happen. Now that said, because of the Bitcoin rally, it's currently doing very well at 200%, but I believe it did very badly when it actually came to the markets. Now the final ICO is Flixo. Now I always thought this was a very legitimate project. I thought they had a fantastic team. They just made it to an all-star status. Unfortunately, I never got the time to actually review it properly. Token economics, I marked them down severely. I gave them 30% just because they were giving way too many bonuses, which caused the price to dump. I think Flixo really messed up with the timing of their ICO because they're actually sandwiched in between two of their main competitors, which are Fuely and Props. Flixo really wants to be the next YouTube on blockchain, and I really don't think they've thought through about the competition and the general kind of saturation in the cryptocurrency market. However, I think this is a very good project, and I think this is one to watch as 2018 gets underway. So if you look at the cryptocurrency market as a whole, you can see we've got Origami in the center, and it really falls short on two fronts, the team and the hype. They need to get a blockchain expert on board quickly, and they need to get people talking about their project fast. Then we've got Gimme. Now I actually think if Gimme can get a lot of hype on board, this could be a very good flip because it's got very good token economics, but the team are lacking in many respects. You know, you need quants, you need actuarial specialists, you need people who know about statistics and numbers on board their team, and I don't see that with this project. Then we got DeepBrain. I think this is something to watch. The fact that it's mineable is very interesting. It's really going old school and going back to basics. It's undervalued at only 15 million market cap, but whether they can really shine on the marketing front in the West will definitely remain to be seen. And then we've got LenDoit, which, although it lacks originality, more than makes up for in its unorthodox stance with lending platforms. The whole notion that you can lend money to someone without having some kind of collateral in place is really kind of unheard of in traditional financial sectors. So it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to compete with its main competitors in the cryptocurrency markets. And then you've got Bankex, which you can really compare to LA Token. They both want to do the same thing. They both really want to create a protocol for tokenizing assets on the blockchain. It's going to be very difficult to get this thing off the ground in reality. And then we've got Bread, which I think could do very well in the long term. I also think it could do very well in the short term, precisely because there's no pre-sale dumping, and I think this is definitely something to watch at the end of this month. So, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I really appreciate it. And of course, be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button because investing in ICOs is time critical. And it would be such a shame for you to watch my content only to miss out on the latest ICO offerings. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.